Okay, so in this video we are going to talk about conditional rendering and list rendering. So let me just create a div instead of this paragraph text here. So let me create a div here. So I am also going to create a data property here. So I'm going to say script, and inside the export default I'm going to say data. We know our data have to be a function that will return an object. So we can do it like so. So let's say here we're going to have a property called boards, which will be an array. So what I want to do is, if the boards array is empty, I want to say you don't have any boards, otherwise I want to show these boards. So let's see how we can do that. So we can have a h2, and this will say you don't have any boards, you, like so. Okay, let me style it a little bit. So let me give it a class of message, msg for message, and go to our style.css and target our message. And we can say this should have a gray color, so we can say color, and it should be some gray color. So let's choose a gray color. Okay, let's try this color. It looks like it is not changing. Let's see what's going on. So in the home page, okay, we have to save it. We forgot to save the file. So if we save it, as you can see, we have this gray color now. So let's go back to the style.css. I also want to say that text align should be center, like so. Now this text should only be showed if this boards array is empty. So for example, if we were to add an item here, so for example I can say title equals to test board. So now since our array is not empty, this text should not be shown. So how we can do that? So to do that, we can use conditional rendering. So one way to do that is we can use v-show. So we can say v-show. V-show is a directive. So Vue.js has many directives. We will see them later. For now, let's look at the v-show. So here, just like a if-else statement, we can have a condition. So the condition can be something like, let's say our boards. So let me copy this. So we can say boards dot length equals to 0. So only if this condition is true, then the h2 tag will be shown. So it is just like using the if statement. Only this will show, the h2 will be visible only if the boards.length is 0 or the array is empty. So now if we save it, as you can see, the text is gone. But if our array was empty, as you can see, we can see it. So this is called conditional rendering. Now instead of v-show, we can also use v-if. This still works the same. Now the difference between v-show and v-if is, if I click on inspect, as you can see in our body, we have this div. Inside the div we have this main content, but inside that we don't have any h2 tag at all. But if we were to say v-show, now as you can see, our h2 is rendered, but the display is set to none. That is why we can see it. So in case of v-show, the display will be none, but in case of v-if, the element will not be rendered at all. So I prefer using v-if, so like so. So if you use v-if, you can also use v-else if, v-else. So for example, you could have another elements, or for example a div. Here you can say v-else if, and have another condition here, and finally you could have a v-else. So I don't want a v-else if, so I'm only using the v-else. Else we can say something like boards.length. So now it will show us the number of boards we have. So for now we have this one board. So if we want, we can have another board. So let me copy this. So let me give this div a class of boards container. So I'll say class. So now what I want to do is, for each of the element in this array, I want to show a div with the class of board that will be our board. So let me try to do that. So what we're going to do is have a div that will have a class of board, and inside that, for now, let's just say it should say test board. And let's say we have an array called testboard1. So we should have a div like this that says testboard1, and we also need a div that will say testboard2. Testboard2, like, actually this is testboard1, so like so. So if we save it, it says test board 1 and test board 2, but we don't want to type this manually. We want to loop through all the arrays. So to loop through all the arrays, we can use the v for. So the way you would do that is say v-for, and here you can say something like board in boards. So in this case, the board will be individual element of the array, and the boards is our just this array. So for each of these board, we are going to have this div. So if we save it, as you can see, we have these 2 boards. So if we had another, so let me just copy this. So now we have 3 elements in our array, and if we save it, as you can see, it says 3 boards here, like so. But as you can see, we have this red line here. That means something is wrong. That is because whenever we use the for loop, we have to add a key to our list. So that way Vue would know when the data changes, we have to update the list. So we can simply say key equals to, and here we have to say something unique. So for example, our board title is unique, so we can say board.title. But if we do this, the deadline is still not gone. That is because the board.title is just a string. So the key will be same for all the elements. We don't want that. So instead of saying board.title, we want the board.title to become the actual title of our board. To do that, we're going to use what is called data binding or attribute binding. So to do that, you simply have to say v-bind : and then you can use JavaScript here as well. So we can simply say board.title, so it will be the title of our board, or we can make it shorter by saying just : then key equal to board.title. And if we now save it, as you can see, it works the same, and now the error here is gone. So now let's style our board. So let me copy the class and go to our CSS and paste the class, and let's give it some padding. So let's say padding of 1 em, and we can also say this should have a box shadow, so we can say box-shadow. Let's say 0 pixel from the x-axis, 3 pixel from the y-axis. The blur should be 6 pixel, and color can be some dark color. So let's say RGBA 000, and the opacity can be, let's try 0.3. So this is how our board looks now. Now I want to give them some margin. Actually, I don't want to give the margin. I want to use the display of grid to our container and use grid gap there. So let me go to the home page back. Actually, let's close some files that we don't need for now. So let me close this. We can close the navbar. We can close the about page, facts page, and the app.vue. So now we only have the home page and style.css opened. So let me copy the container. So it is called boards container. So let me copy this, Control C and Control V. So let's say this should have a display of grid. So we can say display, and let's say this should have a grid template column of, let's say, 1fr, 1fr. So 2 column layout, like so. And let's also say this should have a gap. So let's say gap, and gap can be, let's say, 1 em also. So now we have this space between them. So 1 em is a little low. So let's try 1.5 em instead of 1 em. So now we have a little bit more space. But what I want is, in bigger screen we should have more columns, and in small screen we should have only 1 column. So instead of saying 1fr like this, we are going to use the repeat function, and I'm going to say autofit, and then we're going to use the min-max function. So we're going to say min-max. So, and the minimum width should be, let's say, 300 pixel, and the maximum can be 1fr. So as much space is available, like so. Okay, it looks like we have an error, so we need to have a semicolon, like so. So now in bigger screen we're gonna have more columns, and in smaller screen we're gonna have less amount of column. Actually 300 is fine. Okay, now also I want a border top on our board, so we're gonna say border top. So border dash top. The border top should be, let's say, 3 pixel solid, and for now let's just say red, like so. And also give it some border radius. So I'm going to say border radius of 3 pixel, or let's say 5 pixel, so like so. And let me reduce the opacity of our color of shadow. Let's try 1.1. This is too light. Let's try 1.5, and this should work. but it looks like the border radius is not applied. It should be 5 pixel or 4 pixel. Okay, the 4 pixel should work. Now what I want to do is, our object should also have a property called color. So we're going to say color. So first one can have a color of red, and our second one can have a blue color. So let's say color equals to blue, and the third one can have a yellow color. Also let's say this should be 2, and let's say color equals to green, like so. So now instead of saying test board everywhere, we can say board.title, and this will give us the title of our board. Like so. Now this says board 1, board 2, like so, because our title is test board 1, test board 2. Also we want the color to be whatever the color here is. So we can say, we can use what is called style binding. So again, to bind we use v-bind colon or just colon. So we're gonna say colon, and then we want to bind style. So we're gonna say style, and here we have to say object. That is because we can bind multiple styles. So we can say, for example, color colon red. We could also say something like height equals to 500 pixel, like so. So it looks like we have an error. Let's see what is that. We have to use single quote here. That is because we already have double quote inside that. So we have to use single quote here. That is because we already used double quote outside. So let's try to use single quote, like so. And if we save it, it should be color. And now you can see both styles are applied. Since we can add multiple styles, that is why we have to use the object. So for now, what property I want to use is border color. So border color. So we can say border, and in CSS we would say border color. But in case of JavaScript, we have to say border color, like so. So we have to use the camel case, and colon, this can be our board.color. So board.color, like so. So now as you can see, the border top is whatever the object's color is, like so. Instead of using the expression here, I'm going to use a div with a class of head, like so. Inside that I'm going to have a span, and the span will say board.title. And then I am going to have another span. Inside the span I'm going to have a button. So I'm going to have a button that will have a class of btn, and this will say add board. So add board. Actually this should say add item. And also we need to set the color to white. So let's do that. So this is our button. Here we can say color to white, like so. Also let's try to use a plus icon like we did here. So we're gonna use the I tag, and we have to say class equals to fa dash plus. So here we have this add item class. And also another thing that I'm going to have is a button to delete. So I'm going to have another icon. This time I'm just going to use the icon. So this time the class will be fas and fa dash trash. So trash will give us this trash can icon. Let's style them in CSS. So I'm going to give this a class also. So we're going to say head dash buttons. So head dash btns, like so. So let's first target our head. So copy the class, and let's go, let's say here. So we can say dot board and dot head inside that. This should have a display of flex. So display flex, and we can say justify content to space between, like so. And let's target our trash icon. So we can say dash fa dash dot fa dash trash. This should have a color of red. Let's use some different red color. So let's try this color, and this is how our trash icon looks like. And let's say this also should have some margin on the left. So let's say margin left of 0.75 em, like so. And we can also say cursor to pointer. So we can say cursor to pointer. So if we hover on them, the cursor will change to this icon, like so. Let's also say align items to center. So align items center. So this and this will be aligned in the center. And let's give this span a class of title. So class title, let's style it in CSS as well. So I can say dot head dot title. Let's say this should have a font size of 1.1 em, and inside that, and we are also going to say this should have a font weight of bold, like so. So this is how it looks now. And we can also add some margin bottom to our board head. So we can say margin bottom. Let's try 0.5 em, like so. So what I also want to do is all of our boards. Okay, for now let's just work with one item. So this will be much easier. So what I want is our boards to also have a property called items. So we're gonna say items, and items will also be an array. The items will be the items that we'll have inside the board. So now here, after the head, we're also going to have a div. Now again, if the items is empty, we want to show a message saying the board is empty. Otherwise, we want to show the items. So we can again copy the h2 tag here. So Control C, and here let me paste this, Control V, and here we're going to say, and instead of saying boards.length, we're going to say board.item.length, items.length, like so. So now it says no items yet, but if we were to have an item, so we're going to say an object, we're going to have an object that will say title equals to test item, so like so. If we do this, now here we want to show the item, so we can say a div that will say v-else. Oops, Control Z. So a div, and we're going to say v-else. Here we'll show the items, so we can use the for loop for now. So we are going to say paragraph text, and here we can use again the for loop. So let me just copy this and paste it here. So instead of saying board in board, so we're going to say item in, we're going to say board.items, and here the key can be, for example, item.title. Okay, it looks like we have some error. Let's see what is that. Parsing error, unexpected character in attribute name. Okay, we should have a space here, and here we can simply show the name, so show the item, so we can say item.title, like so. So now it says test item, that is because we only have one item. So if we had another item, so copy this, so now we have 3 items, so it is showing 3 items. If we didn't have any items, it would show no items yet. If we didn't have any board at all, it would say you don't have any boards yet, like so. So what I want to do is, as you can see, the code is looking a bit messy, so I'm going to create a component for the boards. So let me just cut this out. Actually, let's comment it out for now. So we are going to comment it, and let me open the sidebar again. So in the components folder, I'm going to create a file called board.view. So in the template section, let's create the template section. The template section will have this HTML. So copy this and paste it. Let me fix the indentation here. And we are not going to have this board here, this loop here. So let me cut this out. Okay. So if we now try to use it, so we're going to first import our board. So we're going to say import board from, we're going to say @components. So we're saying source/components/board.view, like so. So now let me copy the name. So now we can have a property called components, and we are going to have one component called board. So let me copy this. So instead of showing this markup, we want to show the board. So now if we save it and look at our console, as you can see we have a lot of error. That is because in that board here we are saying board.title, board.items, etc, etc, but this component does not have any board. The boards are in this component. So what we are going to have to do is pass the elements of this array or board into this board component. So the way we do is, again we are going to say colon, because we are going to pass a JavaScript object and we can name it whatever you want. So we are going to say board equals to, and for now let's just try to say the first element of this board. So we're going to say boards and the first element of the board, like so. So now that we have did that, in this component we have to receive this board object. So the way we do that, we are going to use the script section again, and inside that we are going to have a property called props. So props is basically the data that we want to receive. So we want to receive a data called boards. So in the array we can say board. This is one way to do that, or another way would be to use an object. So we are going to say object, and here we know we want to receive board, so we are going to say board. And now this can be an object. Here we can pass some data properties. So like we can say required equals to true. So whenever you use this component, you have to pass a data called board, and we can say the type of this board. So we can say type equals to, the type have to be an object, like so. Now if we save it, as you can see it says test board 1, like so. Now instead of just passing the first board like so, we want to use the loop again. So let me just copy the code for the loop. So Ctrl C and Ctrl V. So here instead of saying board 0, we can pass the board. And let's see if anything else is left to do. Okay, our board also needs a color. So let me just copy that from here. So here we are binding the style. So let me copy this. Ctrl C, and in the board paste it. Like so. So now if we had multiple elements, copy this. As you can see, this is once again working, but it looks like that styles are not applied, or the color is not changing. So let's see what is the problem here. It's saying duplicate key detected called test item. Let's see why is that. Okay, we have called all our boards test boards. So this is a problem. So sometimes our array may not contain any unique element. So in that case, what we can do is, let's see why we are doing the loop. So instead of just receiving the board, we can say we want board and the index of that board. So we can wrap it in parentheses and say index, like so. So now we can use the index for our key. So we can say index. Okay, it's still giving us the error. That is because in our object the items are also the same, or the title of our object is also the same. So let's do that in this loop also. So instead of just saying the item, we want the item and the index. And we can use this index for our key. So we are going to say index. And if we save it, as you can see now the error is gone, but the style is actually the style is applying, but we only have red in all our styles. So that is because it is not working. Actually it is working, but we couldn't tell. So we can say green, like so. So now it is working just as it was working before, but now we are using a separate component for our board. So let me save this, and it says no boards, no items yet, but other says we have 4 items, like so. So everything is working as we want. So let me remove some items from here. Save it. So now we only have 1 item. And let's also have just 1 item, like so. And also another thing I want to do is in the navbar, as you can see we have these links. Right now we only have 3 links, but later on we can have 4, 5, 10, 20, a lot of links. So instead of hard coding them here, let's also use a loop here. So let's say script source equals to script, and inside the export default we're going to say data have to be an object, we know that. So data have to be a function, we know that, and that will return an object. So we are going to have an object called links, and links will be an array of object again. So we are going to have a link with the name of home, the path will be / a link with the name of facts, and the link will be facts/20, another link with another object with the name of about, and the path should be about. So instead of having them hard coded, we can say router link, and again we are going to use the v-for loop here. So we are going to say v-for, and let's just say link and index in our links, and we also need to use a key. So Control B, close the sidebar, and colon key, and the key will be our index, and here we can say our link.name, and our router link needs to have an attribute called 2. So it needs to have a 2, and the value of 2 will be the path. So again we are going to use the data binding, so say colon, and the 2 will be our link.path. So link.path, like so. So if we save it, okay, it looks like we have some error. Let's see what is that. Okay, it should be v-for, not v.elseif. So v-for, it should be links, and now it is working as it was working before, but now you can simply add an object here, and it will be added to our navbar. So this is much better approach. So another thing that I want to show you is class binding. So what is class binding? So just like we can bind keys to, we can bind key to style, we can also bind class. So we can say colon class. Again we can have multiple class, so we are going to use an object. So here we can name our class. So let's say the active class will be added. So if you want the active class to be added, here you want some condition. So again the condition can be 4 is greater than 5. So now 4 is not greater than 5, so this active class will not be added. So if we try to inspect it, as you can see, our links don't have a class of active. But if we say 4 is greater than 3, which is true, our router link is basically compiled to this A tag, and now this have this class of active. So let's try to style it here. So in our CSS, where is our router link? So let's see our nav link. So when the nav link is hover, or when the nav link has a class of active, so we can say .nav links a.active. So if we save this, as you can see, all of our links have this underline and the opacity is 1. So we don't want all our links to have this underline. So we want to add the class active only if our current path is same as this link.path. So we can say, instead of saying this, we can say route.path. So $route, and path will simply give us the path. So if our path was /about, the route.path would be about, like so. So if we save this, okay, it looks like something is wrong. Okay, that is because instead of saying route.path, we are going to have to say if link.path equals to route.path. So for example, if our route is /about, so /about, and in case of this object our path is also /about, so only in case of this the class should be active, otherwise the active class would not be added. So if we save this, as you can see, our home has a class of active. That is because right now we are in home page, so our home has this active class. If we go to our facts page, as you can see, our facts page now have a class of active. If we go to the about page, now the about page has a class of active. Okay, this should be all for this tutorial. In the next tutorial we are going to create our items.